Hello folks, Scott here with another Scor-Pal Project video for you. Now, when Diana and I started this series in August, we kind of plowed right into the game and started making boxes, and we made double-sided boxes and single-sided boxes and specialty boxes, but we never really spent much time talking about the Scor-Pal tool itself and all of the wonderful things that it can do beyond basic box building. So Diana and I thought we'd take this month to do a get to know your Scor-Pal video and look at some of the myriad options that it gives us as craft makers. I love my Scor-Pal. I have a Scor-Pad on my Scor-Pal. Love it too. But let's talk about our Scor-Pal today and all of the wonderful things it does. Now, one thing that I think most people forget, and I know I forget about it too, is that your Scor-Pal, right under Diana's signature here, there's actually a magnet right there. That will hold paper clips or brads or whatever you're working with. I don't use paper clips much in my card making, but I do use little itty bitty clothespins. I will use these to hold pieces together while they dry, and since they have that little metal spring on them, they stick right there on that magnet, so I can keep them handy whenever I need them. Now, I do have a Scor-Pal 8s. This is the latest edition of the Scor-Pal, where they have score marks on every 1/8 inch across the whole board. I love this. I love having that many options as far as scoring. Now, there are some extra markings on our Scor-Pal here. We've got some dots there. There's an asterisk at 4 1/4. Of course, I think we know what that asterisk at 4 1/4 means. You can take a piece of, this is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 inch cardstock. We can score it right at that asterisk right there at 4 1/4, and that will give us a perfect little A2 card right like that. I think it's pretty obvious what that asterisk there at 4 1/4 is. I actually put a red dot at my 5 1/2 in case I'm making a top fold card. 5 1/2 is where you would make that score line. In fact, when I do top fold cards, I like to score an entire sheet of cardstock. I'm using 110-pound cardstock today, so I like to score the entire sheet at 5 1/2. Go ahead and pull that right down. Go ahead and fold your whole cardstock sheet in half. Commit that crease with our score tool, and then I can take that to my guillotine cutter and I can cut that in half at 4 1/4 and instantly have 2 top folding A2 card bases. So that's why I went ahead and marked my Scor-Pal with a little red dot right above 5 1/2. That will always keep me on track if I'm doing top folding cards. We do also have these dots at 2 1/8 and 6 3/8. Those dots on this Scor-Pal will actually give you a gatefold card. Will actually create a perfect gatefold card on those marks. Easy and simple. Just score on the 2 dots, commit your creases, and that will give you a perfect gatefold card. No gap in the center, opens up. A perfect gatefold card. Now, the older Scor-Pals have a couple of inverted triangles at a couple of places. They are at 3 5/8 and 7 3/8. And what are those for? Well, those are actually for a, you might call it a trifold card. I don't really call it a trifold card. I think of it more as a brochure fold. So just a plain piece of copy paper here. We're going to score at 3 5/8. That's 1/8 over a half. 3 5/8. And we'll also score at 7 3/8. Just past the quarter mark. 7 3/8. Now that's a good lesson on the use of your score tool as well. If you lay it at more of an angle, you have a little bit of a softer time going. If you lay it on your board more straight up and down, you've got a little more force. So with my 110-pound cardstock, I'd be scoring it like this on this plain paper, I pull it down a little flatter, and it prevents me from tearing right through the paper. So actually, I have those inverted triangles marked on my Scor-Pal here, just because I do some work with brochures. There you go, a perfect little trifold. This would make a nice trifold slimline card, actually, if you did that with cardstock. Almost extraneous, but those inverted triangles are marked on the older Scor-Pals, so I wanted to touch on those as well. That's your dots, that's your asterisk, there's your 5.5, and there's your brochure folds. Now, I know that some people get confused with the 1/8 inch measurements on your Scor-Pal here. The great thing about the new Scor-Pal is that it does have marks referring to 3, 6, and 9 all the way down. But you can also, if you have a thin Sharpie, this is a ultra fine, extra fine point Sharpie, this will fit in the groove of your Scor-Pal, and you can actually highlight every inch of your Scor-Pal if you would like. My Sharpie's running out. There's 1 inch, there's 2 inches. If 3 inches are already marked, you could go ahead and mark every inch along your Scor-Pal. You've got 8 spaces between inches if you need an extra little helping hand figuring out your 8ths. Also, if you don't like that and want to get rid of it, a little alcohol will take those off, scrub those right out of your grooves on your Scor-Pal. But those will stay permanently. You can do that across your whole board if you'd like. I'm a little bit of a neat freak, so I will probably remove these later on. Now, there are so many dies and embossing folders and all sorts of tools out there to create beautiful backgrounds for your cards, beautiful textured backgrounds. I think sometimes we forget that our Scor-Pal is perfectly made for doing some great embossing on our cards. So I wanted to go through some great fun patterns that we can emboss with our Scor-Pal. We don't need an embossing folder. We don't need a die cutting machine. You don't need a big plate die. You can do this all with your little score tool and your Scor-Pal. So one of Diana's favorites, and I really like this too, is called a crisscross pattern here. So I'm going to take, again, I'm using 110-pound cardstock. This is just white cardstock. I'm going to place this right in my 6-inch notch, right in the top there, and match the bottom with that same groove so our 2 corners are right at the 6-inch mark. I'm going to score these every 1/4 inch starting at 5.5. So we'll go 5.5. I can push down good and hard because this is really thick cardstock. 5.5, 5 3/4, 6 inches. That should be from corner to corner. We'll go 6 1/4 and then 6 1/2. That's 1/4 inch apiece. Then we're going to rotate our cardstock around just 90 degrees. Put our top corner right there at our 6. Match up our bottom corner there. We'll do the same thing, 5.5 and 5 3/4. And 6 inches, which again should be from corner to corner, 6 inches, and 6 1/4, and then 6 1/2 will finish us out. And we've got this great crisscross pattern. A great, perfect, lovely background for a card. You could trim this down, of course. You don't have to use the whole thing. I especially like this pattern when done with a color core cardstock. Here's that same pattern done with a color core cardstock. A little light sanding on the top of that will bring out the color core. I think that looks really terrific. I really like that. It's so simple and yet quite stunning as a background for a card. That's our little crisscross pattern. Now let's do a little Argyle pattern, which again is scoring on a diagonal. So your cardstock is at 6 inches. And the bottom point matches that at 6 inches. So we'll score this at every full inch. So we'll start at 3 inches over here. That's just the little tip of the card. But if you want to use this whole panel, you'll want that 3. We'll go to 4 and score at 4. We'll go to 5 and score at 5. We'll go at 6. Again, this should be right from corner to corner. 6 all the way up and down. 7 is right here. Then 8. And again, 9 will give us just that little extra piece on the end. Then we're going to pull this down a little bit just to get it away from the top and keep it in place. We're going to grab our score bug. I really like this. This is kind of like a little sewing pouncing wheel. It's got a spinning wheel here, and we'll go in between all of those lines. Now, I've got really thick cardstock here, so I need to press on this fairly hard, but I'm going to start at 6.5 and pull that straight down. We'll go to 7.5, roll that straight down. We'll do the 8.5 also. Pull that straight down. We'll go to 5.5 on the left. And we'll go to 4.5 on the left. And our last one here is going to be 3.5 right there. And then we're going to turn it 90 degrees. Line it up at our 6-inch mark, top and bottom, and we're going to repeat that same thing. We'll start from the right here. We'll go at 9, we'll go at 8 and 7, 6, from corner to corner, 5 and 4, and our last little bit right here at 3. And we'll pull that away from our top edge, keep it right lined up. It helps that you've already got your score marks. Those will keep you in line. And then take our score bug and do the same thing on the 1/2 inches. 8.5, 7.5, 6.5. See, you got to be careful, Scott. 6.5. I'm rushing. 5.5. Make sure your little bugs are in the right groove. 4.5 and 3.5. There you go. If you're paying attention, it works. Pay no attention to that line right there. But that's a really great Argyle pattern right there. Really nice. I love that little ticking mark that the score bug gives us. If you actually go through your paper with that bug, you can take your score tool and just lightly wipe over the top of that, and it will kind of close up your extra holes. I do like the embossed side of this. Of course, the debossed side also works nicely. Then there's a chair rail pattern. Really nice, really easy chair rail pattern. Again, we'll take a piece of cardstock, and let's say the middle of our card, this is 4 1/4, so 2 1/8 is the middle of our card. So that's at that first dot, actually. So we're going to score right there, and then we're going to score 1/4 inch up from that. So that's just 2 spaces over. That's 2 3/8. That's going to be the top of our chair rail right there. Then we're going to turn this around. I'm going to move to the right side of my board here just because it makes it easy. Now we're 5.5 inches here, so let's go at every 1/2 inch. We'll go 1/2 inch, and we're going just to our first score line. 1/2 inch to our chair rail, 11 inches to our chair rail, 10.5 to our chair rail, 10, 9.5, 9, 8.5, 8, 7.5, 7, and that gives us our great little chair rail pattern right there. If you get a little heavy on your bottom score line here, it's easy to pop that in and reinforce the bottom of that chair rail there. Cleans everything up very nicely. That came out really nice. You could do some direct-to-paper inking on the top of this. Now, I like to use this one debossed. I think that looks much more like a wooden chair rail. Add some ink to that, and it would keep those grooves white. A great chair rail pattern. That's another one. Pillow ticking. Oh, I like this one a lot, too. You think a pillow ticking is actually pretty simple. Let's try and pull down here a little bit, see what happens. Okay, so we're going to go every 1/2 inch on this. So we'll do it at 11.5. Again, I'm on the right side of my board. I love the Scor-Pal that it has this fence on the right side, so you can use the right side just as easily as you can the left side. That's 11. There's 10.5. There's 10, 9.5, 9, 8.5, and 8. I'm going to keep using our score bug for this pillow ticking, and we're going to go into the 1/4 inches. So I'm going to come bottom up this time. There we go. Right in between our original score marks. So these are still a 1/2 inch apart, but they're between our score marks. 1/2 inch. And another 1/2 inch. I love the feel of that. I think you can hear that too. And our last one. And there we have pillow ticking. What a great pattern for the back of a card. Now you can use the deboss side here, or you can use the embossed side here as well. If you poke through your cardstock, I don't think I have any poke throughs here. I don't see any light coming through that. So a nice pillow ticking pattern just with your Scor-Pal and the little score bug. I really like that one. I really like that alternating straight lines and the dotted lines. Okay, let's try a box plaid this time. A simple box plaid. We're going to start on our short side. We're going to go at 1/4 inch and then 1 inch. Then 1.25 inches, and 2 inches, 2.25, and 3 inches, 3.25, and then 4 inches. So that's giving us evenly distributed double stripes here. So now we're going to turn it to the long side. So I'm going to start on this side at 1/8 inch. So it works its way evenly across the width of our card. I'm going to start at 1/8. And then move 1/4 inch, which makes it 3/8. And that'll take us to 1 1/8 and 1 3/8, and then 2 1/8 and 2 3/8, 3 1/8 and 3 3/8, moving 1/4 inch, 4 1/8. 4 3/8, and then we've got 5 1/8 and 5 3/8. So that matches the left side. That evenly spaces us. Look at that nice box plaid. There's the embossed side. Nice, straight, simple, forward. This would look really good on a color core cardstock as well. A simple box plaid. Now we can do another plaid using our little score bug as well, which will add a different feel to that. So on our long side, we'll start at 1/2 inch. We'll go to 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, and then on our short side, we'll start at 1/8 inch. On our short side, we'll start at 1/8. And then go 1 inch widths across. So that's 1 1/8, 2 1/8, 3 1/8, and then 4 1/8. There you go. Now we're going to add some ticking between that. We'll go 5 inches, 4 inches, 3 inches, 2 inches. There's my little black mark. 1 inch. Press down, Scott. 1 inch. I get a little stray. I'm trying to go too fast here. Halfway between is going to be 1/2 inch plus 1/8. So that's going to be 5/8 right there. 1 5/8. 2 5/8. It's just past our 1/2 inch mark. And 3 5/8. That's where it is. There we go. A nice different kind of plaid using that score bug a straight on, not quite a box plaid, but this is almost more like a Scottish plaid, I guess we could call it. There's another great one. This is one of my favorites too. They'll call this one the Sunbeams. We're going to start again with our cardstock at 6 inches. Make sure the bottom point is at 6 inches as well. We're going to score that right at our 6-inch mark. Then we're going to move our bottom point, leave our top point in place, move our bottom point a 1/2 inch to the right. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces over. We're moving the bottom 4 spaces over and then scoring that 6-inch mark again. I think you can see what this is going to give us. 4 spaces over on the bottom. And we'll do one more, 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces over. Score that on the 6-inch line. Now we'll go in the opposite direction, back to our 6, and move over 2, 3, 4 spaces. Score that on the 6-inch mark again. Scoot over 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. Score on the 6. And one more time, 2, 3, 4, and score on the 6. And look at that. I love that. Of course, this is the embossed side. The debossed side looks almost as good. One of these interesting things, I was thinking about this while I was practicing these, was you could ink up a cardstock with ink, do your ink blending or whatever, and then do your embossing on that with your Scor-Pal, and then sand it, and you've created your own white core cardstock by coloring the top of that. Doesn't that sound interesting? I love this one. The Sunbeam. This works great vertically, works great horizontally. In any direction. Fun little Sunbeam embossing. Now you can actually also do a brick embossing on your cardstock just using your Scor-Pal. We're going to start on our short side, score it every 1/2 inch. We've got a 1/2 inch right there, and 1 inch, 1 1/2, 2 inches, 2 1/2, 3 inches, 3 1/2, and 4 inches. Now we're going to turn our cardstock 90 degrees to the right, and we're going to go at every inch and skip every other embossing line. So this is making our bricks here. So we'll start at 1 inch here. Let's go over here, see if we can see this a little better for you. So here we'll start at 7 1/2. That's an inch from the end, and then to the second, and skip a row, and skip a row. If you just move nice and smoothly, you can pretty well keep up with that. That's 7 1/2. We're going to go 8 1/2, top row, third row, fifth row, 9 1/2, 10 1/2. You can feel your little grooves underneath your cardstock. Don't push too hard, but you can feel where they are, right where they're supposed to be. And 11 1/2 will complete these bricks. And now we'll go and do the next ones, but we'll start at 7. That feels right. Skip a row. Eight, 9. I worry that I'm going to break my my score tool sometimes. I push so hard on it. 10, second row, fourth row, sixth row, and then at 11 on our second row. And there we have it right there. There's our brick embossed pattern. Now this one, again, you can use either side, of course, but I do think that this side works really, really nice. You can take your ink cube and lightly color this on top with red and or brown or whatever, and color your bricks, and then the debossed areas will, of course, just keep white back there. If you have any of the cross lines that are a little bit fuzzy because of the opposite scoring, you can go back through, reinforce those, Comes out real nice. Now there's a spot there where I went over the line. You can actually kind of clean that up from the back with your score tool. Just press that back down so it's not an embossing right to there. It almost cleans that up. And that's a great little brick embossing pattern. So many options, so many different ways you can use your Scor-Pal and your score tool to make fun, decorative elements for the backgrounds of your cards. And of course, you can make envelopes with your Scor-Pal. There is a handy little tool called the Scor-Envy, as in envelope. I believe. I really like this as it has all of your dimensions and directions right here on this little triangle. This has a little groove in the side here so that it fits right in to the right side of your Scor-Pal. Let's make an envelope for a regular A2 card, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. According to our instructions on this, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, I need an 8-inch square cardstock. My first scores are at 3 and 9. My second score lines are at 3 3/4 and 8 1/4. So let's figure out how that works. Again, we're going to take, this is actually just pattern paper. I love being able to make envelopes out of just plain old pattern paper. No cardstock needed. This is an 8-inch by 8-inch square piece of pattern paper. We're going to align our corner at the 6-inch mark and the bottom at 6, which should put us right up against the edge of our guide. Our first scores are at 3 and 9, so we go to 3 inches over here. We're going to score at 3 on the left. Again, a little flatter attack with my score tool. 3 inches and then 9 inches. A little flatter attack so I don't tear right through my paper, and 9 inches. Those are our first score marks. Then we're going to turn it 1/4 of a turn, put our point right up there in the 6 mark, slide that up against our Scor-Envy. Our second scores are at 3 3/4 and 8 1/4. So 3 3/4 is right there. 3 3/4 and 8 1/4 just right there. Now you can see that gives us a little crossover on each of the corners. We want to take our scissors and trim those little areas away. You can, I'm going right to the center of that and kind of spreading out a little further, making it just a little bit more of an angle than what's actually scored there. And all 4 sides, go ahead and trim those corners away. And in our last corner here, and then we'll fold this together right along our score lines. Since this is just paper, I can do it with my thumb. But you see how if you give that little extra bit of dart on the side there when you're cutting those away, it makes those corners look really nice and clean. Now you can also go in with your corner rounder. Scor-Pal has this great Kadumaro Pro that works very well, and you can round all of the corners on your envelope. I'll use the large round here on this. Nice and simple. Makes it all look very nice and professional. And there's our envelope. We'll grab our score tape. I think I'll use my 1/8-inch score tape. Since this side is longer, I'm going to put the score tape on the side flaps here so we don't get extraneous score tape that actually glues our envelope shut. On both sides, pull up our liner paper, fold up the bottom of our card, and glue that down. This is a great A2 card envelope. Little A2 card will fit in there just perfectly. Plenty of room for any dimension that you might have on there. Use some more score tape to close that top flap down. Perfect envelope. You don't need any special tools, just your Scor-Pal, the little Scor-Envy. For our last bit here, let's try a square card. We can do a square envelope as well. This card is 5.5 by 5.5, so let's make an envelope for a 5.5-inch square card right here on our little Score Envy. 5.5 by 5.5. We need a 9-inch square, and we score it 3 and 9 the first and second times. It's a square envelope, so everything should match. We're going to butt this up against our triangle here, line it up at the 6 mark, and we're going to 3 inches and 9 inches, rotate 90 degrees, and do the same at 3 inches and 9 inches. That landed right on that pattern line. Could ask for anything more. And again, we've got little triangles in the corners that just need to be quickly trimmed away. Again, I'll give them a little extra room on the sides. I think that makes the envelope look a little bit fancier. And then we'll fold our flaps in. This is an interesting pattern paper because it was printed on a 45-degree angle. It's going to come out square on an envelope because we turned it 45 degrees angles. So that folds up nicely there. We can go ahead, let's just do the top and bottom as far as rounding our corners. I think the sides kind of disappear when it's all glued together. I'm going to go on the bottom part of my envelope here, 1/4-inch score tape on one side and the other, pull up our liner paper, fold our sides in, fold our bottom up, glue those all together. That should fit our 5.5-inch by 5.5-inch card beautifully, plenty of room. So I think that's a pretty good crash course on your Scor-Pal, getting to know your Scor-Pal. If you didn't know your Scor-Pal before now, hopefully I've been able to give you a couple of illustrations on new ways to use your Scor-Pal. I love creating these patterns with all of my card bases. All these different patterns are available and are really quite easy to do. I have had a great time doing this little series of Scor-Pal videos for you. It's been a true thrill for me to work with Diana Crick and all the people at Scor-Pal for this last series of Scor-Pal Project videos. I hope we were able to show you something new, possibly a little different. I think we're going to be taking a break starting the first of the year, so this will be our last Scor-Pal Project video for this year. We will try to come back sometime next summer and or next fall and do another series of videos for you guys pushing towards the holidays. I hope you've found these videos fun and enlightening. I hope you've made some boxes and now you can maybe make some fun embossings for your card backgrounds. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me here. It means the world to me. Heaven knows all of you have blessed me this year immeasurably. Thank heavens we have just started vaccinating our healthcare workers here in New York City. Today is actually the first day of vaccinations. It was on the news at noon. So hopefully there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Hopefully we can all get back to normal at some point during 2021. I wish all of you the happiest and the healthiest of holiday seasons. I wish you all a joyous, bright, and new year. One that hopefully is going to be a lot better than 2020. Please remember to like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all of your friends. Don't run with your score bug. And as always, I wish you happy crafting. For more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please visit my website at cardcutups.com.